Hi everyone, welcome and thank you for joining me today. I think if you look through my playlist on this channel, you will come to the conclusion that I had some intense interest in the Kohberger Idaho 4 case, and no, not because I particularly like Bryan Kohberger or like his looks or know his family. No, nothing like that. I was invested in the case because, firstly, I could not see how one single bloke with a knife, a studious nerd, who may have been a runner, but definitely not a weightlifter, not military or law enforcement trained, no combat training of any kind we are aware of, managed to murder 4 fit, healthy young people in 8 to 16 minutes. But not only that, he supposedly left nothing but the minutest bit of touch DNA behind. Not a hair, not a fleck of shedded skin, or even a thread from a glove, a jacket, a cap. Nothing, after battling for healthy young people, one of whom we know put up a fight. But apparently, although everyone is eager to tell how feisty and fit Zana Knodel was, she apparently, allegedly, did not have a single piece of skin or latex or cotton or wool or anything under her fingernails or on her person. However, Ethan Chapin, a healthy, tall, fit young man, did have a clump of hair in his hand, hair which allegedly, not DNA tested, but which law enforcement could tell did not belong to Bryan. Now, question, how could they tell it was not Bryan Kohberger's? Is it because it was more than 2 inches long and blonde? Now, I'm not implying anything, but I think it is a legitimate question to ask how they knew that it wasn't Bryan Kohberger's, if at the time they supposedly did not even know about Bryan Kohberger. So why, before they even found out about Bryan Kohberger, did they not send that hair away for DNA analysis? They somehow found a microscopic bit of touch DNA, but they did not test a clump of hair in the hand of one of the victims. So that is why I was and still am fascinated by the case, because it just does not make sense. On December 15th, 2022, Moscow police and their partners were looking for a 2011-2013 white Hyundai Elantra, of which there were 22,000 registered in the state of Idaho. So somehow, for whatever reason, they decided to focus on Bryan Kohberger and his 2015 Elantra. Well, we still, after 4 years, don't know that. Now, also talking about Bryan Kohberger's vehicle, it's a vehicle which did not so much as offer up one single hair or one minute microscopic piece of DNA of even one of the victims. And I'm sure that law enforcement, or then the FBI, took that vehicle apart, or at the very least took the carpets out and took the inside covers of the door off. At least, well, at the very least, they should have done that. And still, they found nothing. So we have to believe that after killing 4 people in the most horrific way, so violent that blood seeped through the walls, Bryan did not track anything back into his vehicle or eventually back into his home. Nothing. Now, to date, the murder weapon or weapons have not been found. Stories of stalking have been debunked, at least where Bryan Kohberger is concerned. People are now coming out with all kinds of theories like he could have been inside the house before and no one noticed because it was a party house, etc., etc. However, the point is that there is no proof of that. What convinced me, however, more than anything, that Bryan Kohberger may not be the perpetrator of this crime are things hidden in what Kylie Gonzalez's father said. We saw a video of Kylie and Maddie walking with Jack Showalter, and Kylie asked, and obviously drunk Maddie, "What did you say to Adam?" And Maddie answers, "I told Adam everything." Now, to this day, we still do not know what Maddie told Adam, and we were told that it is of no consequence and has nothing to do with the case, and I cannot quite understand how that could have been said at the time, because although it could be coincidence that Maddie told Adam something potentially upsetting and then was killed a few hours later, I think it would potentially be better for the police or court to decide whether it was of any importance or not, and not Kylie's dad. Then, in an interview, Kylie's father also dropped a bit of a truth bomb, which rattled me at the time, but because there were so many other issues and so many other things happening so fast, I basically forgot about it until a few weeks ago. Now, Mr. Gonzalez said that there were things which is best left unsaid because it will shock and disgust the public, and he wasn't talking about the crime scene at the time. So regardless of what kind of life these young people lived, there is and was still no visible reason, or shall I say no obvious or apparent reason why these four were to be murdered. I mean, there never is. Taking a life should never feature in any equation. But having said that, because someone did already kill 4 young people, and another young person's life is now also on the line, and therefore, unfortunately, one has to deal with what is being said in order to 100% determine whether Kohberger is indeed guilty or whether he is just the fall guy. So with Bryan's phone showing no contact with any of the occupants of the house and no trace of any such interaction on any other of the electronics he used, one has to wonder who were the 4 victims in contact with, who would want one of them or 2 of them or all 4 of them dead, and why. Also very unfortunate is the fact that there is still talk of recreational drug use, about naked photos of Kaylee, and recently it has also surfaced that Kaylee's ex-boyfriend was not as cool with their breakup as everyone, including himself, made him out to be. As a matter of fact, it appears that it was noticed that he was indeed very upset, that he was distracted, and it was suggested that he actually go and speak to someone. Then, if you watch a little more of the footage of Maddie, Kaylee, and Jack Showalter walking to the food truck, you will also hear Jack saying to the girls, "So, we are getting grub." and then one of them answer yes, and then you are going home, okay? Now, in the grub truck footage, we then also clearly see the girls ditch Showalter. It then also later appears that it was Showalter who asked Kaylee's ex-boyfriend, Jack DeCoeur, about Kaylee's naked photographs. And Jack D and others admit to police that Kaylee mentioned a stalker. Now, I'm not accusing anyone, but could it be that Jack Showalter was the actual stalker? Now, of course, none of this proves that either one of the Jacks had anything to do with the murderous rampage. But what it certainly proves is that both of them had far more reason to do harm to the inhabitants of 1122 than Bryan Kohberger. There are a lot of other things which also may indicate a cover-up of sorts. For instance, Bryan Kohberger's family is now speaking up, and what is a little odd is that they are saying that they were not allowed to speak previously. Now, why would that be? Stephen Gonsalves, Kaylee's father, and at times her mother, even her sister and her half-sister, were riding the airwaves bravely and boldly and definitely influencing a potential jury pool with their narrative. So if true that Kohberger's family was gagged, then there was certainly a bit of biased reporting as a result, in my opinion. And I mean, how else? How could there not be if information shared was indeed one-sided? What is also very difficult to make sense of is that Kaylee's father, Steve Gonsalves, was extremely upset when Bryan Kohberger took a plea deal, and that part of the plea deal was not to tell what happened or why. He said he felt the family deserved an explanation, which I fully agreed with. However, now that there's a possibility that it may very well happen, now he does not want it anymore, stating that he loves his state and he does not want his state to spend more money on the case. Blah, 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 and what utter rubbish. All of this said, I sincerely hope that there will finally be a trial so we can hear the evidence for ourselves, because from what is out there at the moment, none of it, in my opinion, is convincing enough to actually convince me that Bryan Kohberger and Bryan Kohberger alone did the deed. So, okay, ladies and gentlemen, that is it for now. I will see you back here again soon, likely with some information on the Nancy Guthrie case. So until then, please take good care of yourselves, stay vigilant, and stay safe. Bye.